Speaker, Mr. William C. Power, but he's sitting back there and ready to come forward and tell us all about this petition for Social Security advance.
Yay! All right, let's go.
Yes, carefully negotiate your way between those two tables because
If you get disabled, you end up on Social Security. You know?
Okay. All right. And you're on. If I can get out.
Right here?
Okay.
Would you like me to take it away, sir?
Okay, the main topic here is Social Security advance. Oh, actually, it's part of keeping money in the community.
Oh.
And I guess all of you, most of you have a copy. Funding of Social Security can be enhanced, and at the same time,
Louder.
funding of Social Security can be enhanced, and at the same time, those who receive Social Security income can benefit. Social Security should let recipients have an advance equal to or less than 1 month of their Social Security income at a flat 5% fee. This should be repaid through deductions in 10 months or less at no more than 10% of the total amount per month. The advance must be repaid in full before another can be given. No credit check is necessary, and a request for the advance should be enough. Many seniors are in a position where they can't get any money from anywhere from anybody, and many of them are trapped in the high interest rates of credit cards and payday loans. This will give them a low cost money and returns that 5% to the fund instead of sending it. Then the high interest goes to Wall Street, and it doesn't benefit your community. It doesn't even benefit America. It ends up going offshore. Now, if you can get an advance from Social Security and pay that 5% back to your source, whether Social Security or a private pension, you cut off the high interest that's going to Wall Street. Low interest money in your pocket buys more goods and services in your community. People spend money where they live. And it doesn't make sense to continue to send money out of your community that goes out of the country. Social Security advance is just part of keeping money in the community. There are 60 million Americans who receive Social Security now. And there are 10,000 a week coming on the Social Security rolls. Now that's a big number. I can't get anybody in the mainstream media, although they all tweet me. MSNBC tweets me all the time. The Clintons were the first to start tweeting me with other people to tweet and tell them about this when I got on Twitter. But the thing is, anybody who needs a sponsor knows that this will divert billions of dollars a year from Wall Street. You understand? And they're not anxious to get in front of this. They want to see the numbers. Get celebrities, they tweet me about this, but they won't sign the petition. You understand? They're afraid. And that's understandable, because the major broadcast systems, they're all involved with Wall Street. I've been trying to get up to just print this. This is 5 sentences, plain English, basic math. But ARP won't do that because ARP is in a credit card partnership with Chase Bank. And ARP asks me for money every month. And every month I put a copy of this in the envelope and send it back to them. And that's what we're up against. We're up against the big money. The big banks borrow our tax money at less than 1%. And when they loan it back to us, they want 12% better on credit cards. And on payday loans, they want more than 30%. You'll find people who say they ended up paying more than 100% on a payday loan. It's insane. It doesn't have to be that way. Credit score is just a trap to get more money out of you. The people who caused the problem in the first place are telling you that now you're a problem and they got to charge you more money. Now we can keep on going that way, or we can do something about it. The rich can buy ads and politicians. But if you don't have that money, petitions can influence votes. But now we got people who are scared to death to sign the petition. If I sign that petition, they will be able to find out about me. Now let's face it, there are over 200 data brokers, well-established data brokers. You understand? There are millions of individuals on this planet who can come up with your birth certificate, your school records, the grades that you got in school, your Social Security number, every address you ever had, your license plate numbers, your driver's license number, the VIN numbers on the cars that you've had, the light bills and gas bills that you paid, your marriage license, and the hotel and motel bills that you ran up while you was cheating on your spouse. They can find out all of this. And you're afraid to sign a petition online about Social Security because if you do that, they can get you. They're already into your bank account. I mean, what are you afraid of? You already had. Social Security advance is a personal and economic self-interest proposal that will build a coalition of intensely involved people. There will be a strong pushback.
Shut it off. It's for me.
Yeah. All right.
That's my son. He has a key to my apartment, but he can't get in the downstairs door. I had to buzz him in. Now, where was it? Now, this is not going to, it's still going to be necessary to raise the cap on Social Security. See, it's over 60 million people joining now, and that number's going up. Young people today that work in these fast food industries, in the Walmarts, they don't have anything coming in their future but Social Security. And without Social Security, they will impoverish their kids. They will impoverish future America. Social Security is the #1 pension plan in this country, and we can't let it fail. Damn sure can't privatize it. That'd be the worst thing in the world to do. Anybody who wants to listen to Paul Ryan, I don't understand them. I predict more than 90% of people will take advantage of this. After all, if you can get money at 5%, no credit check, your credit score doesn't matter. All you have to do is ask for it. You can't get money that cheap unless you hock your house. You know, if you got one, you know what I'm saying? This is designed to be repaid in 10 months so that and you can renew so that you will never have a need for a credit card in most cases, or never have a need for the high interest of a payday loan in most cases. And this would divert billions of dollars a year from Wall Street, and they know it. Now, I took this other farm to our mayor in 2011, before Thanksgiving, and I presented it to his press secretary first, and they were really excited about it. And then after a week, they acted like they didn't know who I was. So I went to police stations, I went to fire stations, CTA people, teachers, everybody I presented to, retired police commander, everybody I presented to, including the city treasurer's office. And they have never forgotten me being there. And they all wanted it because, let's face it, they all on the city payroll. And it makes sense to them. Those on the job now that have pension plans, private or public, should be allowed an advance of up to 4 weeks of income based take home to be repaid in 40 weeks or less at a flat 5% fee. And that's a flat 5%. Without all those little doodads that credit card companies add on to whatever percentage they say they charge you. The 5% should go to that individual's pension fund. The 40-week repay, and if desired, automatic renewal is designed to eliminate the need for a high interest loan or credit card. The paid in advance formula is designed to benefit the worker and the community that they live in. High interest dollars leave the community and America. Paid in advance lets the worker pay themselves instead of Wall Street. This is not a tax issue. It does not require any sort of tax adjustment. Those who stand against paid in advance do so to protect Wall Street high interest. The biggest banks on the planet borrow our tax money for less than 1%. But then the politicians they own will do anything they can to stop us from reusing our own income at 5%. Wall Street does not want Main Street to have an alternative that diverts money from them. Another thing we need to do is move your money to local credit unions and independent community banks. This is a call for economic revolution that does not require violence of any kind or confrontation with police. I'm calling on the military and the religious community because I believe our veterans and our religious leaders are not afraid of Wall Street. I know that politicians and much of the media are owned by Wall Street. Keep dollars in the community is a simple and effective solution for improving and sustaining a strong economy that is Main Street based. Politicians concerned with their political advance and want the backing of Wall Street will not serve Main Street. Any mayor or governor can initiate this with the full support of citizens if they want to. We must call them out and demand an answer. If our mayor would put that in front of the city council, they would pass it in 15 minutes because they are all included. Everyone on the city payroll. If you have to repair you have to repay. If you're elected or appointed official, your repay has to take place within the political term.
You sure, honey?
If you're a union worker, your repay has to take place within the union contract. This does not have, nobody is against this but our mayor. You understand? He's the only one against it.
Really?
Him and my alderman. I don't understand my alderman. Everybody else I met on the city payroll, and the people in the city treasurer's office, they really love it. It makes sense. It makes sense. You don't have to jump through any hurdles. It's money that is coming to you anyway. So you pay it back, and that interest goes into your pension fund, not to Wall Street. That can be done. That doesn't hurt any. If that is available to you, it doesn't cost anybody else in the world a penny. Not a penny. Why is it that those who do want you to have it? It's obvious. They don't want to cut Wall Street out. Fox News had me suspended off Twitter twice. I was kind of suspicious the first time, but the second time I knew it was them and I complained to Twitter. This is, and you can't get, is somebody here from the reader? Because I can't get the Sun in time, I can't get any of them to print the 5 sentences of Social Security. They will not print them. They won't do it. And reporters like from the New York Times, Charles Blow and Earl Lewis, they tweet me. Man, I want them to tell Mayor Blasio about it. But the people won't print it. They just will not do that because they are involved in Wall Street. MSNBC. I got, well, they all put up their email addresses. So they all have all of this, as had it for damn near 2 years. And when I got on Twitter, it really started recommending other people to me to send this information to. But they won't mention it. Why? Because it would deflate billions of dollars a year from Wall Street, from their sponsors. I mean, I understand that's where their money is coming from. And they just can't do it. That means that they got to use social media. And I'm not that adept at it. We have to learn how to not be afraid to sign petitions. Those of us who don't have money. So all we can do is sign petitions and try to rattle a politician's cage. Let them know that you can be elected without Wall Street. That there are enough of us who will stand with you. I live in a senior building. There's only 3 other people in the building that got computers. That's understand. Most seniors don't have computers. And only one of them would sign my petition.
Tim, are you ready?
Too many of them are in that attitude, I'm just waiting on the Lord. You know, when I hear that, I sort of feel like saying, hey, Lord, come get this one right now. We got to stand up. We got to make our voices heard. You understand? Now, I'll be going to City Hall and the State Building all this week till I run out of money getting these things printed. The double-sided ones cost 20 cents a piece at Office Depot, and they cost more at Staples, so I stay away from Staples. Staples charge too much. But every time Now those people, all those workers want it. They all want it, but politicians are heading these organizations. All those workers want it. There's no way that any of them who are working at it who would not like this. If you have a pension plan, there's no way you would turn this down. If you got a credit card and you see a way to get rid of it, and say have a debit card with just 5%, instead of that 12 or maybe 18% that they're charging you on that credit card, well, naturally you take it. Anybody who can get an advance on their job and pay that 5% into their own pension plan, naturally they want that. Who's keeping them from that? Politicians that are dependent on Wall Street for campaign funds. Does anybody want to ask any questions?
All right. Money.
Butler.
Yes, any legislation involving Social Security would be a federal matter, not a city matter or a state matter. Have you talked to any members of Congress about this?
Right, they all know about it.
Who have you talked to?
Almost every Democrat has tweeted me, and I have tweeted this back. They know about this plan.
Who have you talked to in person?
Bobby Rush, not in person though.
Okay.
In his office.
The reason I ask this because
Durbin.
this sounds like the sort of thing that there are congressmen that would see a political advantage in this.
Right.
Mike Quigley would be one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Because this seems like a no-lose situation for
Right.
everyone except Wall Street. No money is at risk.
Right.
Because their federal government is guaranteed to get back its.
That's right. They got the money.
The money that is borrowed goes into the economy,
Right.
generates more taxes.
Right.
A program like this, if I were a congressman, this is something I would love because my constituents, seniors or people close to being seniors,
Right.
would love it. Have you actually sat down with these guys and talked with them at length?
The mayor won't talk
Not
to
the
me.
mayor, no, forget the mayor.
Senator Durbin won't talk to me.
Durbin won't talk to you? Will
No.
one of his aides talk to you?
Well, I talked to people in his office, and the same thing with Danny Davis. The same thing with when before he went to jail. Congressman Jackson, you understand? And like I said, the Clintons, Bill and Hillary were the first to tweet me when I got on Twitter about this. But nobody's raising their voice.
How about Jan Schakowsky, if you talk to her or one of her people?
She knows about it.
She what?
She knows about it
How do you know she knows about it?
because I've sent emails.
Okay.
See, this is not.
A lot of people get emails that they don't necessarily
Right.
read.
Well, I'm pretty sure that enough of them know about this, you know, and I'm still pushing it. I just need more people to push it, and I need it. Yeah.
Earl?
Okay, well, obviously, there's gonna be some administration cost here, and, you're gonna have to have a computer network set up to keep track of everything. And then what if a person dies before they pay back this amount? Who's gonna pay for all this infrastructure?
The way I see it, any old skinflint who dies before he repays his loan, I say don't give him another penny.
What about the administration cost?
This is not a large sum of money, a 1 month advance on your income. That's not a large amount of money. You know, the system can stand some dying.
Yeah.
You got it.
Because the 5% being paid in from millions
Would you like to
of
answer?
individuals.
Would you
How many
I
people-
went
how
for
many
that
people-
because that's the big number. Social Security is the big
How
number.
many people are you gonna hire to run this program?
I can't hire anybody. People have to be motivated and have to want to. People have to want to get their church involved, their club involved.
Yes, honey.
My one question to you is, if it's such a good idea, why isn't there like a website set up? Or some more volunteers like yourself
Oh, sure.
just
We get a
putting
clean
this
form.
out
This is
more?
online, the Social Security is online. The petition online would move on.
That I know, but you don't you have like there's like a web page set up or anything like that?
No, I had one set up and I made lady take it down. She's the one that told me about this because she was advertising her business. And this is, and I told her to put this up about Social Security, not about her private, her business.
David, do you need a menu?
Now this is, anybody who wants to can ride this train. I mean, you know, there's nothing stopping you.
Robert? Apple pie?
And if you are online, you can sign the petition. And you can get others to sign the petition.
I already did, just now.
The information is on the bottom of the page.
Okay, Mike Foley.
Yeah.
On the Social Security,
I do.
Mr. Powell,
yeah.
are you pretty much the only guy that's pushing this by yourself, this idea, or
No
have you got
chocolate, just
anybody else helping you?
Well, there's organization that I just came aware of called Unit Blue online, and they are a liberal organization, and they're interested in a lot of things like fracking, the vote, women's equal pay. That's one of the things that bothers me. I got 3 granddaughters and 4 great-granddaughters. I'm really pissed off about women not being paid equal. So, but I might have a breakthrough at City Hall or something, because all of their pensions are being threatened. You know? But they got to step up and speak up. You understand? I'm not in the union. It's up to them. They got to step up and speak up. And the teachers, I don't understand the teachers. They know about this. At least 75% of the cities with the teachers. They can demand this.
Yes, Joe, Mayor?
Are you aware that the 64 million people on Social Security now represents about 5% of the total population of the United States? And that the U.S. government borrows from the Social Security funds with an IOU that says we'll pay you back sometime in the future. Are you aware of that?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So there's competition for the money.
Right. Look, Social Security will be harder than the city, the county, and the state. Social Security will be harder. But Social Security is the big one. Social Security recipients live in every community in America. You understand? And that's why I want to get churches and veterans organizations who are not afraid of Wall Street to make everybody aware of Social Security advance.
Gene Anderson?
Yeah, the schedule had some of the bases that you were going to talk about tonight. I was a little confused and I said, let me get down here so I can hear the speaker and ask certain questions. Now, you mentioned Social Security recipients, 6 billion or 50 million, and you said they should be able to get an advance and pay it back 10 months later. I don't understand how the individual benefit if whatever happened that I need $900 and I go to Social Security and they give me $900, and I pay it back when I can within 10 months.
Now, it's deducted at 10% a month. They can never give you an advance that would cause you to have to give up more than 10% of your income per month, because some people will hurt themselves.
Okay.
Social Security already got your money, you know what I'm saying?
In other words,
If you get it a month's advance, they take it back at 10% a month for 10 months.
okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. However, this individual and a whole bunch of individuals might have bad luck, to use that term.
Don't matter.
Well, yes, it does, because if you need 900 today, you might need 900 6 months from now.
It don't matter. You ain't got it coming.
Oh, okay,
You
so
gotta make
you
it
asked
back.
my question. So it ain't too much benefit for millions of individuals to proceed with the Social Security system in the way you just talked about.
It is a benefit for anybody who wants it. A benefit for anybody who wants it. For anybody who realizes that 5% is a lot less than they paying on credit cards or anything else. Now, it's not a freebie. It is not a freebie. If you're looking for something free, it ain't happening. But it's a benefit for anybody who wants it. And all you got to do is ask for it. There's no credit check. They can't say no.
Dan Webber.
Yeah, I think you answered this already, but, you know, you might have a good idea, but if you sat down with a lot of people, or a number of people, and tried to convince them to help you, and have you found anybody to help you very much?
There are people in this room that can help if they want to.
No, but my question is, do you now have a number of people who you call on to do things
it's
for
30.
you and make you, help you make phone calls and
I'm calling on you right now.
Yeah, that's why he's here.
maybe I don't want to
Listen,
help. Maybe
I've
it's,
asked people to sign the
don't.
petition and people
Okay.
tell me things like,
won't.
oh, that's a
He's
good
here.
idea.
Okay,
Go tell
He's
Reverend
recruiting.
Leroy or Alderman
didn't know
Judge,
that?
but
He's here to
But they
recruit.
don't sign the
well, why don't
petition.
you help?
All right.
You're at Social Security.
All
No.
right, next question. All right, I've got a question.
Well, I'm not on Social Security.
That's why he's here.
Just how
Oh, it is?
much setup
But I
is
said he's been doing it for
Social
years, so
Security
doesn't
going
he
to
have people
require from
already,
us,
not just
getting into
here?
those-
We all paid money to get
Yeah,
this
come on.
Look, once Congress has decided that Social Security can do this, it's just a matter of pushing the button. You only got two variables there. You understand? And that's how much do you get a month? Back, I mean, they don't have to hire anybody extra for that.
I noticed that Congress doesn't like to press a lot of buttons. The Congress of no for some years now. There's a lot of administrative cost, and I don't know that the 5% interest on these loans is going to pay for that.
Oh, yeah. They'll more than pay. They'll more than pay. The thing is with Congress, there are some politicians who would like to go along with this, but they want to see the numbers. They can't stand against Wall Street without the numbers. That is the whole entire thing.
All right, David Travis.
Why should people be able to borrow money from Social Security when in fact Social Security was set up for people to have a small amount of money as a, to like subsidize them? It was never intended to replace income, but merely to to like subsidize them. So, shouldn't people be glad with what they're getting and let well enough alone?
The government has no trouble borrowing all the money out of Social Security. Now, if you can't get a month's worth of your income and pay it back, kind of thing, that's because there are people who don't want to let you do that. You know, it's not that it would cost Social Security.
I gotta get you some
When you say Wall
sour
Street,
cream.
what do you mean exactly? And what does it have to do with Social Security? George Bush wanted to give Social Security to Wall Street, but it didn't quite work.
Right, that'd be the wrong thing to do. Definitely be the wrong
Credit
thing
card
to do.
companies.
You see, Wall Street, in fact, the 5 biggest banks really control the credit card. I mean, the payday loans and all that sort of thing. And they borrow our tax money at less than 1%. And that's because we got a Congress that lets this happen. And if we don't stand up in big numbers, and that means millions against this, we got to start chipping away at this. Now we got a better chance of kicking the door in and opening the floodgate if a mayor does this, or a governor does this, somebody head of an agency who has the authority to do this with their payroll, because it will not cost a penny.
Okay, Charlie Paddock.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, that a lot of seniors have electronic fund transfer of their Social Security, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I do too.
And so, if you wanted in advance, it would be nothing for Social Security, like Carl was talking about. You've got 2 code numbers for electronic thing for them to do it automatically. That,
Right, and they
you
don't
could
have to
fill
do
out
that.
a
They just send
form.
you a check.
You could
If
fill
that's
out
the way
a
you get it,
form,
you know,
and it
they're
would
gonna take the money back.
fill out a form. It could be done electronically with no human intervention.
Somebody has to program that.
And not, believe you me, this is set up for no people.
See, we can keep saying, well, somebody has to do that. We have got to make that somebody do that. You understand?
What if I don't want to pay for it?
If you get the money, you're gonna pay for it. You're gonna pay for it because they're gonna take it out.
It's deducted from
You know, they're not gonna leave it up to you. And it shouldn't be. It should be that way.
Okay, Robert Holland.
What would prevent people from taking a loan through this system just at the point they become sick and anticipating dying?
Nothing.
So it's
So how much of that is gonna happen?
Wouldn't it be
How
like
much of that is gonna happen out of 60 million people?
wouldn't it be like buying an insurance policy right before you expire?
That wouldn't be a drop in the bucket. That would not be a drop in the bucket.
So the system you propose isn't vulnerable to gaming.
Well, let's look at it like this. The money goes back to the fund. Now, how many people are going to die within that 10 months?
Eventually everyone.
Yeah, but not in one 10-month span. There's not going to be enough people dying in any one 10-month span to hurt the system.
On what basis do you make that calculation?
The common sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's not good.
Common sense. We know better than that.
Grandpa looks sick. Let's get some dough.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, just follow on the previous question. I think
Everybody who dies, you don't have to send them another check.
Yeah, I think the previous question is quite valid because say half of the people they after they realize they don't have much life to live, they take the borrowing or take this opportunity, take the advance.
Oh, I'm sure that would happen if a person didn't know they had loans. They might do it just to give it to their family.
Right.
But that's not going to be big numbers at any one particular time.
It probably make money.
That will probably increase.
And the fact that you never have to send them another check, that's all right.
Well, if you calculate the human life expectancy, that will just increase like 0.1 year. And that on 60 million, that would be quite significant.
Come on.
But people borrow money and they die.
All right, my turn.
They die when we owe them.
Sir, I understand that the entire Social Security system operates with somewhere between a 4 to 5% overhead. Now, if they're collecting 5% on the loans, they're getting quite a bit of money coming in, which would pay well over anybody who died before the 10 months, I would think. You would end up with money which you wouldn't know what to do with, because you're bringing in, if it costs so little to operate the whole system, this is bringing in 5%, and the whole system, that's a lot of money you're bringing in.
Definitely.
This would make money for Social Security.
I said it was be over $3 billion a year. But see, I was really lowballing it because I didn't want to be called a lie.
All right.
And that was 2 years ago when there was only 54 million people on it. And I was saying that the average was about $1,000 a month payout. But the average is $1,200 a month. And there's over 60 million people. So, any kind of tabulation, you know that this would, there's going to be at least 90% of people who are going to take advantage of this low interest on the money and this easy access to the money. All you got to do is say, I want it.
Okay, Travis?
I think in the interest of freedom and a better America, I think it would be best to privatize Social Security, or at the very least, or better yet, phase it out altogether.
Social Security hasn't missed a payday in over 70 years.
Dan, did you have a question? Mr. Weinberg, did you have another question?
Yeah, I understand.
Well, yeah, okay, I'll think of a question. Social Security is socialism, right? Now, President Roosevelt, when he started it, he was a socialist, he was a communist.
Is there a question in all this?
Yeah, there is a question.
Okay, let's get to it.
So, can we just end Social Security?
No.
And then,
Let the man talk.
hey,
Got a question, he ain't
so,
got
okay, the question is,
Would you please
question,
get your
yeah, the
question
question,
out?
all right. My question is, do you think Social Security should be continued, because pretty soon it's going to be all these 60 million will be 80 million, 100 million? I mean, is this true? Is this the way of the future?
We've got millions of people working right now, young people, like I say, in the fast food industries and the Walmarts. And the only thing that they're going to have is Social Security. Without Social Security, America would be impoverished.
Right.
All right. That's your answer. All right. Bruce Hart.
Unless you're a moron, and there might be some here, we've had socialism in this country from its inception. It's called socialism for the rich. I love the Republican Party say, we got social, yeah. The rich have always had socialism. They steal the money through corporate welfare, money manipulation, everything else. They steal the taxes of the middle class and the poor, and those are the robber barons. It's always been that, unless you have an IQ of 3, which would eliminate George Bush.
That's right. Unless you got an IQ of 3.
All right. Oh, well,
How about let's go to rebuttals? I see
Oh,
it.
my goodness. We're gonna get out of here early. How many people have rebuttals besides me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. How much time do we have?
Still got about 90 minutes, Brom. We can give up in 7 minutes.
Well, let's say up to 6 minutes. I'm sure some of you who haven't been inspired will get the spirit. Okay. So, thank you very much.
Get copies made and pass them out to your friends.
Thank you. And our first rebutter is Joe Mayer.
They're all looking for free money at the government expense.
Have a seat.
Free money from the government. That's the bottom line.
Right.
That's what you want. Give me.
A brief history of capitalism. There was a time when capitalists produced manufactured things which they sold and derived profit from what they sold, minus, of course, the cost of producing it through materials and labor. But beginning in the 1850s, capitalists realized that they didn't have to do that. In fact, they were shuffling stock issues around. In the 1850s, 95% of the stocks traded on the American Stock Exchange were railroad stocks. And much of it was fraud, of course. You start a railroad company and you collect all this money from shareholders who are hoping for a big return, and you never build the railroad, you just take the money. That continued, the shuffling of stocks around, until about 1982, when capitalists realized that there was a much bigger way, a much better way to make profit, and that was debt.
Right.
We are the debtors, and you could make a much better return on your investment by issuing credit cards, mortgages, what have you. And since then, we have gotten into a position where almost every one of us is in debt. And our speaker, I appreciate the information, it's really good, gives us a way to borrow money without paying outrageous interest to the banks who already are ripping us off. But remember, in the heyday of capitalism, there were wars. One country, one group would conduct a war to acquire minerals or materials or information from another country. We would have severe wars. World War I, World War II were fought between finance capital and manufacturing capital. But now, if there are any more wars, they're going to be for us. They want us. So we already see these wars taking place on television, where Bank of America will promise you 1.5% on your purchases, or Chase will give you up to 3% if you buy a lot of gasoline. And so they're conducting advertising wars against each other for us, to acquire us as debtors. I'm not happy about being the subject of a war. I think it's not a good idea, and I don't think I'm going to survive it.
Economic violence. Remember what Senator Corker did?
Yes, our next speaker
He
is
threatened Volkswagen.
Gene Anderson.
He told them that they could not let the American worker have a voice in the workplace.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, my name is Gene Anderson. Now, the speakers mentioned Wall Street 12 times. No, I'm just kidding, I didn't count them. But listen, all us is living. If we weren't, we wouldn't be sitting here talking and so forth. And we living at a certain time. Now, our government gives away billions and billions of motherfucking dollars every goddamn month. And when they ain't giving it away monthly, they're giving it away daily. These are not Anderson's words. You see it on television, the chairman of the Federal Reserve will come on and say, we reduce this from 85 billion a month to 65 billion a month. This money is coming from the people. The people is us. And that's where money comes from. Where do who is the people? The people are supposed to be our folks in Washington, senators, the president, the regulators, the enforcers, and so forth. That's where money comes from. Ain't no goddamn private money. I knew that 50 years ago. If it wasn't for a government, these people would starve to death, like a lot of poor folks out there in the streets now. Now, I don't understand, you can give your money to some asshole that don't need it, but here's somebody that need it, and here's this whole talk about, well, that's lazy, he should do this and that. Well, what the goddamn guy on Wall Street that get all this money, he ain't doing a goddamn thing. When you ever seen him with something in his hand doing some work? He don't have to. Why? Because he, in his cohort, runs the money. We, the people, sit around and talk silly like we talk now about we can do this or we this and we that. You ain't got no government, you ain't got no representative, you ain't got no senator, you ain't got no power, you ain't gonna run shit. So listen, folks, why can't we all see this? Why can't we all see it? Well, I'll tell you why. John Locke said it's hard to get people to do something different from what they have been used to doing. And he was saying this in his comments on government. John Locke, that must have been at least 200 years ago, more than that, at least 200 years ago. Now, it's no different now. But I'm so sick and tired of walking around and people talking and they are not saying nothing original. And everybody seems to be blind. Everybody is avoiding the truth. I mean, give me a break. The truth ain't never hurt nobody. Lies hurt more people than the truth has. How many people have died in Iraq and different other places in the world based on a bunch of goddamn lies? So everybody's scared of the truth, and everybody wants to say, oh, this and this and that. Well, what the speaker was saying here is kind of a little confusing, and I would almost have to put him in the category of the folks with good intention, but the picture is somewhat blurred to me, blood, whatever the word is. And I don't understand that, because even in the book it said the way so clear the blind man wants something, the fool won't make an error. I'm saying if somebody come on television and say I'm giving away 85 billion this month, you would think everybody could hear that. And could see it with a certain amount of credibility, because you're looking at this person, or there's no other reason for them not saying it. But they rather go and deviate and come up with something like, oh, that's socialism, or this is so-and-so, the people are going to be cheating here and so forth. It never mentioned real cheaters. They done cheated so much that they done taken your goddamn government, your money, and your freedom, and everything else. And we still saying the same thing that we said yesterday and yesteryear.
Who's next? Mike Foley. Very good.
I'm Mike Foley. First thing I'm going to say is I'm in favor of Social Security. There's lots of people, not just here in this room, but in this country, say it should be changed this way, changed that way, or eliminated, privatized, publicized, whatever. But it's been going on for, I don't know, 70 or 80 years, and it does function. Anyway, the other thing I'll say to Mr. Power, I admire you for trying to do something decent and worthwhile. It seems like a good idea, a reasonable idea. That's probably why nobody wants to hear it, because it makes sense. I'll tell you something else, Mr. Power. I'm not suggesting you or anybody else does anything illegal. But if you want to talk to a congressman, I've been saying this for many years, if you want to talk to a congressman, you've got to walk into his office with a check for $100,000 in your hand. And you give it to the secretary and say, this is a campaign contribution. Remember that phrase, campaign contribution? You fill out all the paperwork and make it legal and lawful. And you can talk to any of them. You can talk to Jesse Jackson right in the jail cell right now. And you give him a $100,000 campaign contribution. You'll get done what you want to get done. You go give a $100,000 campaign contribution to a guy in the House of Representatives. They'll have a bill run through the Congress and passed that same single day that you're sitting in his office there. And then you go to Durbin's office, he's a senator, you give him a $100,000 campaign contribution, and the bill will be run through the Senate, and it'll be on the president's desk the next day, waiting for him to sign. That's how you get things done. Now, and again, I'm not suggesting you do anything illegal. Make sure you keep saying the phrase campaign contribution or political action committee or something like that. And it's all legal and lawful. Oh yeah, socialism. What's the big deal? Like that man over there said, we got socialism for rich people. We got socialism, we got welfare, we got Social Security for rich people. Don't forget the $185 billion check. The people who own General Motors Company got one of those checks in 2008. The people who own AIG Insurance Company got one of those checks in 2008. Chrysler Corporation's been on welfare for probably 30 years, whenever it was, when they first went broke. And the 5 biggest banks in this country, Mr. Power's talking about the 5 biggest banks in this country running the credit card system and all other kind of stuff. Every single one of those banks is a welfare bank. Every one of them is on welfare because they were bailed out in 2008, along with a lot of other companies. And we all hear this BS about, oh, they're too big to fail. They're too big to fail. That's a lie. They did fail. That's why we had to bail them out. If it wasn't for the taxpayers of this country, smart people, there wouldn't be any Bank of America, there wouldn't be any J.P. Morgan, none of them. They aren't too big to fail. They do fail. They are failures. They're on welfare, call it what you want. Welfare, socialism, Social Security, whatever. And don't forget about unemployment compensation. Unemployment compensation is taxable. When you lose your job and you get unemployment compensation, under certain circumstances, you got to pay income tax on your unemployment compensation, and that money is what's used to bail out all these big shot rich people that own these companies. Don't forget, they told us, somehow they told us, oh, the bailout for GM was to save the United Auto Workers. The check did not go to the United Auto Workers Union. The $185 billion check went to the people who own General Motors Company. That's who got the money. Now, I got anything else here?
Did they pay it back?
Maybe or maybe not. The man asked the question, did they pay it back? I heard It reported in the media, I didn't make this up, this was on the mainstream media. They paid back approximately $140 billion of that $185 billion. The way they were able to do that was they sold bonds. Essentially, they borrowed money. They borrowed $140 billion from the Federal Reserve Bank and gave it to the U.S. Treasury. And I know there's all this stuff, well, the Federal Reserve ain't the U.S. government. But essentially, it is. They got $140 billion from one part of the government and gave it to another part of the government. So realistically, pardon me? Oh. So realistically, they didn't pay it back. They're still on welfare. You made another big mistake, Mr. Powers. You said something about common sense. Common sense tells you this, that, and the next thing. That's the last thing anybody in government wants to hear. My favorite story about Jane Byrne, when she was mayor of Chicago, something happened. I don't remember any of the details of this situation except what she said. There was some kind of problem or controversy or something. So she was talking to the reporters or asking, what are you going to do about this, that, and the next thing? Who's going to decide? When they're going to decide? She said, well, we got to have a study, and we got to form a committee, and we got to research this, and we got hearings and blah, blah, input from everybody before we make a decision. So when a reporter says, well, why didn't you make a decision based on common sense? What would common sense tell you to do? And her words were, we don't make decisions based on common sense. Those were her words. That's what she said. And that's how it is in government. Common sense makes too much sense. In a way, common sense does run the thing because common sense is what's good for the financial situation of the elected officials. And that's what rules. And common sense tells you their campaign contributions make sense. Anyway, that's all I got to say.
All right, I'm going.
Right there. There, one.
All right. Only for mayor.
No, please, no, I'm not that kind of a heinous creature.
I know. But all right. But seriously, I shouldn't say things about socialism. That was really stupid of me to say that. It's silly, very clownish. And I hope I take it all back. And I hope you hire me to be a clown at your next party. But Mr. Powers is, like Foley was saying, it's very common sense. It's a very good idea. But nobody is for it. You can't get people to help you. There's nobody helping you. Maybe that should light a light in your brain and say, maybe there's something else. Maybe you should join the Communist Party. Join the Communist Party and go join Occupy Chicago and go on LaSalle and Jet. Well, they're not there anymore, but they were there until a couple of years ago. And I mean, the government doesn't listen. Like Foley was saying, the government doesn't listen to common sense. Common sense, if you see a C sense, they listen to common sense. Yeah, if you got $100,000 and you come with a good idea, and they'll listen to you as long as you have enough money. Too big to fail. What about, I was reading something, poor people go to prison for murder, right? Poor people are in prison. They kill somebody in a robbery and they go to prison. What about corporations that kill people? This company, a gum company, blew up in Albany, New York. 6 people died. Now what happened to the corporation? Nothing. The case actually went to court, but the judge, eventually a judge threw it out because there was no evidence. But 6 people died. So the CEO, the chief financial officer, nothing happened to them. So rich people, there's 2 different kinds of justice in America. There's justice for poor people, and there's justice for people with money.
Yes, sir.
So people with money can get away with murder, literally. And poor people,
rot in prison. Now, your idea of Social Security giving a couple $100 to some people might seem like a good idea, then you can go out and have a party. I don't know, you could give some money to your kids, or they don't have to give you so much money to live. I don't know, it's a really good idea, but Social Security, nobody's gonna get rich on Social Security. Rich people who have pensions and have investments and have a little extra money in the bank, they complain about paying Social Security. There's a cutoff for Social Security. Something like over $100,000, people don't even pay Social Security. So I mean, you know, you're SOL, as my father would say. You just
Solar?
shit out of luck. Shit out of luck, Brom. Too big to fail. Banks got a lot of money. Rich people, AIG, GM, who else? Chase Bank, Bank of America, all those big banks. They got money. What about the people who paid mortgages, who couldn't pay their mortgage? Did they get money? No, they got kicked out of their house. All these banks, all these bankers, did any bankers go to jail? How many bankers went to jail?
Zero.
That's right. Exactly. Zero.
Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, but he was stealing. Big time. From rich people. If he had stolen from poor people, like the banks, nothing would have happened to him.
Yeah.
But he was stupid. He stole from rich people.
Yeah.
He should have stolen from poor people, then would have left him alone.
Roger Ratnam.
So it's a good idea, but you have to get some people behind you. You gotta get a constituency, as they say, and then you can march on Washington. Thank you.
I'm done.
I have to disagree with the previous speaker because I remember when I was being recruited by the New York Secretary of the Communist Party, and I said, well, your predecessor has just been fired by your party because for many years he was an agent of the FBI. You know, and he didn't have much response to say. Hey, go ahead. Yes, Tim Bolger.
Praise be capitalism.
Not praise be capitalism.
Are you an agent of the FBI?
For once, I have to agree with the speaker. This program might just work. Wouldn't cost much to the federal government. It would be a new source of revenue. Instead of going to the banks or payday lenders, they would basically provide a cash advance if necessary for things like small emergencies and things like this. I have used a number of times payday loans just for that reason, and I pay them back right away because I know they're not a free loan. And I do know that, in particular, one of the checking gold ladies up there for about a period of 2 years, she was seeing me quite frequently. It would be a couple $100 that I would need to get a car repair done or something like this, but just to have that would be a good idea. Although I think it would be wise if we all took a little more responsibility with our own financial affairs and put aside an emergency fund. Sometimes with some of the low-wage jobs, that's just not possible. And honestly, I think that sometimes with quick access to a short-term loan along these lines might not be a bad idea. Now, as far as capitalism, yes, I believe in it. Yes, I believe in the power of free trade. Yes, I believe in the power of the almighty corporation. But I also have to understand too that there's another side to it. You need such things as rule of law, good morals in the market, good ways to make things work. And sometimes what we think we want to blame capitalism for is simply a result of bad people making bad decisions and running bad companies. Because I can tell you right now, capitalism has done more to bring more people out of poverty over the last 300 years than any other system that I know of. It's brought in by Adam Smith where, you know, you get the people coming into cities, you get the specialization of labor, you get the trade going, you get people talking to each other, and it has caused what we call development. Globalization has been one of the best things that's ever happened to this earth. And right now with a lot of what these environmentalists want to do when they go to, say, wind and solar power and want to stop development in Africa, is, for me, is a big travesty. And I'll be honest with you, what we need is not less capitalism. We need much, much more capitalism with giving the poor access to capital. Meaning that given a proper program of title registry and land distribution and car title process transfers and markets and data that could all be monetized and put loans on, you would see a lot more people entering the middle class because they could start businesses, they could mortgage their property, they could do a little better banking than what they have now in a lot of third world countries. One of the reasons the United States has prospered over the years has, I believe, been because we've had a good capitalistic system where we were able to, the first function that the government did was bring a good system of property rights in. Then secondly, able to monetize those property rights. If you really want to learn about how capitalism works and how it has benefited mankind, don't take my word for it. Go to Hernando de Soto and look at a book called The Mystery of Capital.
I'll do that.
And there are many, many things. For example,
child labor.
Charlie, and when capitalism comes in to a country and it starts going like gangbusters, child labor generally ends. And it ends because people like you go up and you protest against it. People like you go up and protest and get the sweatshop working conditions in these factories going. And then the companies change. They may have a shortage of labor and they'll either mechanize or move it to somewhere else, or they might just increase wages. We all have and see the benefits of capitalism. We have seen it time and time again. The system, yes, it's a tool. It's a system that works, but I'm not going to say, work in praise of those people who do wrong. I will not condone corporations taking advantage of other people. I do not condone misbehavior in business. But there is one way that you can stop it. Don't patronize those companies. And as far as the TARP program is concerned, I look at it like this. That was the largest venture capital making money scheme that the federal government ever did, because in the long run it was profitable. They actually made money on the TARP program. Thank you.
Don Ritchie.
Okay. All right. This is, you know, I think like Jeff, when he used to come to College of Complexes, he said he never, he would often miss the lecture, but he said he never let missing the lecture stop him from giving a rebuttal speech on it.
The other term.
So, now, first of all, a gentleman here at the college asked earlier about, you know, with the life expectancy going up all the time, isn't that going to put more and more strain on Social Security? Well, that would be an interesting topic of discussion if it were true. But actually the life expectancy is pretty well maxed out in this country, and it is now going down, according to actuarians. I heard a report on this on the radio recently. You see, it looks like the World War II generation, you know, the people that became adults in the 1940s, are going to be they're going to be the longest lived people in this country, because they're finding that the problems that that younger people, by that I mean people who are in their 50s and 60s and 70s now, are worse than those of that earlier generation. That is, that there's a higher rate of diabetes. There's also a higher rate of the problems resulting from diabetes, such as blindness and other problems, being handicapped as a result, and so they're predicting that people are not going to live as long. And by the way, the lifestyle changes that have brought this about, like our huge overeating, are continuing. It's not just the baby boomers. This is continuing into the younger generation, Generation X and so-called Generation Y, so that the life expectancy has pretty well peaked in this country, and it's now going to start. It's going to start declining now. Now then there's I wanted to also talk about what Tim had to say. Tim mentioned good morals in the market. The market kind of has its own system of morals, which is very different from what most people think of when they think of right and wrong. Most people think of helping other people and being a good Samaritan as a moral good. But that's not the way that's not the way things work in business, especially in a corporation where there's an imperative by the chief officer to make as much money for the corporation as possible, to provide a return on investment. Milton Friedman once asked the rhetorical question, what moral obligation does the head of a corporation have, apart from other than to his stockholders, as long as he stays within the law? The answer he provided is none. And so there isn't any force that requires it to. As a matter of fact, giving money away, unless you can make a tax deduction out of it, or improve the company's image, doesn't really do you anything. There's a built-in natural incentive to pay employees as little as possible, and to try to extract as much money from consumers as possible. And the interests of the consumers or the employees are of absolutely no importance in this sort of thing. This is just a natural tendency. Now, second, on the question of whether environmentalists want to stop development in Africa, I have absolutely no idea what Tim is talking about. But all the environmentalists I know are not thinking in terms of they're not going around saying, you know what, Africa's getting much too rich. Let's try and keep it a poor continent. I don't know of any environmentalists who say that. There are some environmentalists who are concerned that rhinoceroses or African elephants might be driven to extinction, but that's not the same thing as wanting to stop development in Africa. Now, as for child labor, I would just say that child labor ends when it's outlawed, and that brings me back to something else. Milton Friedman talked about the law, about corporations as long as they stay within the law. But I think all of us know perfectly well that the law can be changed. And all you need to change the law is to give enough campaign contributions to the right politicians. And so let's suppose, for example, that you want to make money by ripping people off, by cheating them out of their homes. But the law doesn't allow you to do that. Well, it's a very simple matter. You just change the law so now what was once illegal is now legal. And see, now you're still behaving in a perfectly honorable way. You're obeying the law, right? You just changed it. Okay. Now, so historically, child labor has never come to an end until it was outlawed. It just makes too much money. And now, the other thing I would just say about stopping bad business is that the voluntary decisions by individuals to not provide service to a business, to not give money to a business, in other words, to deny a business their money, are not going to work. They have never been shown to work. The only thing that really works to change business is to pass laws that outlaw abusive practices.
You can arrest and shoot rich people,
Which I happen to agree with.
Yeah.
Look, honey.
Oh, thank you, Susan.
You gotta arrest rich people and shoot them,
Yes, ma'am.
plug them.
Sure, honey.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like they did in China.
Did I do something wrong?
And look what happened to China for 30 years under Mao
Oh,
Zedong.
no, that's his.
Find some rich
Yeah,
guy.
I didn't give you
And once they let capitalism go in, they started grooming like crazy.
I'd like to thank our speaker for his presentation. It strikes me that he is pitching a program, not unlike pitching a movie or pitching an advertisement. On that level, I just have to say the pitch fails pretty badly. It's not well enough thought out. It doesn't account for a lot of contingencies that people have that have been raised, even tonight in a public brainstorming session. So it's not yet ready for prime time, I think. That doesn't exactly stop me from wanting to support it, however, because I think it has some appeal to it. The first bit of appeal is that it's utterly simple to understand in terms of the math and in terms of the benefit. The objections about how to administer the program, I think, are utterly negligible. The math is so simple and the programming skill necessary to accomplish it would also be utterly simple. It does not take a whole administration of hundreds of thousands of people to run a program like this. On the other hand, our government hasn't been able to enroll people for Obamacare, so they'd probably find some way of messing it up. My own objection that people would quickly learn how to game the program for their own profit on their way out the door, as it were, doesn't really concern me that much. I don't think it's common sense that it wouldn't happen. I think anybody who could see the oncoming would definitely hit the button, get the payment, and say sayonara. However, on balance, I think that would be the equivalent of complaining about welfare cheats. Or the way I usually characterize it is that you can complain about somebody pulling your hair, meanwhile you're ignoring the people who are sawing off your legs with a chainsaw. And that would be Wall Street, of course, and big business. So I'll probably go online and sign the petition. However, I'd be careful to craft the petition a little bit better and be more comprehensive in what you anticipate the participation rate is. I can't imagine 90% of people participating in this, because basically what you're saying is rather than pay as you go, which is the way most seniors operate because they don't have access to a lot of money, you're offering them a way of pay on credit. It's not their money until they get paid. It's not the government's money until you pay into it. So all these ways of characterizing things as socialism or his money or their money or whoever's money it is that's coming to who or going to whom, I think that's just argument. That's left and right, blue and red characterization and political spin. None of that really concerns me. I would recommend that you petition to the right people, however. The city and the state are certainly not the right people, and I don't think that you're going to gain much traction with a Twitter account either. I'm not on Twitter. I completely ignore that stuff. So there's still some work to be done, and you could probably draft some people with more expertise to assist you with it.
Yes. Accessibility is a problem.
Why? You can go like this. Go back. This
Good evening, everyone. In the movie Capitalism, a Love Story, which I saw a clip, I didn't see the whole movie, you may recall the scene where Michael Moore shows up in downtown New York in front of the building where AIG is and says, "I'm here to make a citizen's arrest." Having said that, however, some of the comments that were made about the conduct of Wall Street financiers and so on, that actually had relatively little to do with Mr. Power's proposal, which I think is a very good one. And I think it's simple on its face, and I think it's a good idea. And the only concerns that I have are the moment you introduce something like this in Congress, some fool in the House of Representatives is going to stand up and say, "But how will this help blind people, or how will this help the oil patch?" Something has to be done to make it saleable to the House and the Senate, particularly in this day and age where the majority of people in the House are people like John Boehner, Eric Cantor, and Kevin McCarthy. The three of the four horsemen who are not exactly the best legislators that this country has ever produced. With regard to the comments that were made about how our speaker, who by the way gave an excellent presentation, should join the Communist Party, well, I'm sorry. Many of us, when we hear the word communist, think about calling the FBI.
Go ahead, call
That's number one.
Go ahead.
Number two, there was some criticism of Franklin Roosevelt for having created Social Security, and he was referred to as a socialist. Actually, people forget that Franklin Roosevelt saved the capitalist system in this country. And without him, this country might well have accepted either some form of fascism or some form of communism in the attempt to survive and combat the Depression. Franklin Roosevelt saw to it that this country did neither one, and that it kept a modified system of version of what it already had, except that President Roosevelt saw to it, among other things, that more people got a greater share of what they produced. That it wasn't just a mass of rich people skimming off all the cream and leaving the dregs for everybody else. Unfortunately, back in the 80s, most of what President Roosevelt did was dismantled by the Reagan administration and by the conservatives in Congress. And as a result, we have a new Gilded Age with a modern version of robber barons. With regard to Tim's proposal or comments about for morals in the workplace, or no, morals in the market, I will say simply this. As I referred to a few weeks ago in rebuttal to somebody else, in 1962, President Kennedy was confronted with a situation in which, after promising that they would not raise their prices, the steel producers turned around and tried to do exactly that. And by Roger Blau, the then chairman of U.S. Steel. President Kennedy had to use practically everything other than bodily harm to get these people to roll back the price increase, which they did. And as the president put it, "My father always told me that businessmen were sons of bitches, but I never believed him until now." And who would know the truth of that better than old Joe Kennedy? Thank you.
Yes, you want to come all the way around and let David get out. And Lee Ping will
Oh,
get it.
he's up there. I didn't see him up there.
I'll be short.
Oh, no, that's...
You, Charlie.
I don't want to miss this.
Good evening. Yeah,
I'll be short. I just sat down, made a speech on the life expectancy. I'm quite sad because my life expectancy may be not as long as I expected.
Well, if you don't smoke, drink, and do drugs, and if you eat the right kind of food and get exercise, then you should live a long time. But,
Okay.
most people don't do those things anymore. The only thing that's gotten better is that people don't smoke as much as they used.
Right.
Okay, thank you. But another factor on the Social Security is less and less young people. I think the population is shrinking as young people. So that's independent from the life expectancy. So that's another thing to worry a little bit. Probably, hopefully, it's not a lot, but that's the only thing. Regarding to today's talk, thank you very much, Mr. Howard. And I try to think of some negative, but not really. I speak a little bit earlier, but I don't think that's really a concern. Charlie explained quite well. So I just wonder, do you have a petition form I can sign?
It's online.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Do it right now.
I hope,
It's on the bottom of the page.
okay. I hope you will keep going for that and gather some support, not just by working yourself. I don't know if you have a group of people working with together, or maybe bring you more momentum and luck.
There is a group that's been supporting me online. Yeah, I just got on, so that's the way it's about. And I couldn't just reach, individuals.
Right, I think directly talk to politician, maybe it's a week. They only either look at how much cash you bring in, or they look at how big your organization is, how many people behind that, and so.
You got enough names on a petition.
Yeah.
For to affect their election.
Yeah, and probably find some other groups help you, other established groups like more liberal groups. Okay, thank you very much.
David Travis is next.
I'd like to point out that I've heard people say here tonight that George Bush wanted to take our Social Security. The historic fact on that is that George Bush had made a proposal whereby they would take 5% of people's Social Security and designate that to be invested in stocks that people themselves would choose. I fail to see where 5% would do any great damage to anybody. So I think we can stop the charade about that George Bush was going to steal everybody's Social Security.
Yep.
And I heard Mr. Ritchie say that about talking about morality, and that there is no morality in the marketplace.
Right,
and so on.
it's a different form of morality.
The fact is that there is a morality in the marketplace that works like this. With workers, it's in the best interest of capital to give labor the very best deal and keep them happy. Because if they are happy, they're not going to go on strikes, they're not going to do sabotage, they're not going to quit, look for other jobs. If you're a happy worker is a productive worker, and that's something that management has learned. I fail to see why it is that when I say something that is against the left, that all of a sudden everybody raises their voice and tries to drown me out and make me some kind of a villain. Why don't you just shut up and listen? I also want to say that workers, in a way, are like customers. If you give your customer the best deal, they'll come back and they'll buy your product again and again. But if you give them a good screwing, they don't come back. They don't buy your product again. That's all. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. In the 1970s, the big three wanted to sell big cars that were heavy on gas consumption, and the foreign car makers beat them with smaller cars that were more fuel efficient, and it caused GM and Ford, they didn't do well because the foreign competition outsold them. And one other thing I'd like to say here is that we all agree that Roosevelt established Social Security. I am sure that he took lessons from Ponzi.
Oh.
Yes, apparently George W. Bush was endorsing a Ponzi scheme when he was trying to privatize 5% of the Social Security money. He was really, the effect of that was to give the ordinary investor in the Social Security a chance to play with their money accumulated over the years, their contributions to Social Security, with investments in the stock market, which would be a great boon to those who manage investments in the stock market. It's called a matter of churning because the stock market goes up and it goes down. And sometimes it goes down quite steeply. Unfortunately for George and his scheme, it went down quite steeply during his administration, and his proposal just didn't have any support even from a whole lot of Republicans in Congress. It was a way of aiding Wall Street brokers who would sell stocks and bonds on to scared Social Security fund holders. So we're glad that that didn't work, and I think that the Speaker's proposal is basically a good one. It's a modest reform, but it would help a lot of people in financial difficulties, and at very little risk to either the Social Security scheme or the borrower. So I'd like to, are there any other yes, Pat Butler. Pat Butler will give us not only a rebuttal from Butler, but a journalist's
perspective.
Oh,
Well,
he can't say, he can't. He's under orders.
Don't
Wall
get
Street.
impression of that, which
He's
is
got a ball and chain
much
on.
more articulate than mine.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Brian. Yeah.
I have heard at least 5 or 6 times tonight people talking about how FDR invented Social Security. Can anyone in this room tell me where Social Security was invented and who was the person who originally made it happen?
Germany.
Germany, jawohl, Otto von Bismarck. Now, Otto von Bismarck, Chancellor of Germany under the Kaiser's father, who was also the Kaiser, was not exactly, he wasn't exactly having a Scandinavian wet dream. You know, he was looking at the very practical numbers here. And he realized that in an industrialized country like Germany, where you had a lot of workers who would eventually be leaving the workforce, unless they had something to tide them over, to keep them going, you were going to have, you talk about a welfare state, you were going to have thousands and thousands of people on the dole. It was a very, very practical thing. And make no mistake about it, Social Security in the United States and in various forms throughout most industrialized countries by the middle of the 20th century, those were adopted as a very practical way of keeping people from impoverishment, because when you have thousands and thousands of people who are impoverished, you have a large government expense, feeding, clothing, and taking care of these people. This was a way of the original war on poverty, if you will. Just because a program is sponsored by the government does not necessarily make it socialistic. What would you say to a program that offers free education for a person all the way up through college? You might call that socialistic. It's certainly done in some countries that we would call socialistic. The fact of the matter is, the GI Bill, which was passed after World War II, was hardly socialistic. What it did was it created the American middle class as we know it, or as we have known it. It enabled thousands and thousands of men and women to go to college, get the kinds of training that would enable them to move into the middle class. If this is socialism, I think we need a little bit more of it. I think this business of using labels on something is sometimes very misleading and very counterproductive. Our speaker tonight disappointed me. He came up with a concept which at first seems like a win-win type of thing. The only people who aren't going to like it are going to be the money lenders. However, the fact of the matter is, you cut your own throat by perhaps not thinking about how to market this to the powers that be. You don't go to an alderman. You go to a congressman. And what you do is, before you do that, you align yourself with a larger organization, like a union, like some kind of civic organization or whatever, of some size. You align yourselves with them. Then you go into a congressman's office and say, I represent 100,000 people who are members of this union, who are members of such and such an organization. This is what we would like you to take a serious look at. Now, congressmen are very survival-oriented people. They serve terms lasting 2 years, which means that every time they get elected, they have to begin thinking of the next election. What that also means, however, is that they have to come up with things that are going to win them points with their constituents. So a congressman who wants to come back to Washington, and they all do, a congressman who wants to come back to Washington is going to come up with things, and this properly marketed, with the kinks worked out, could be one of the things that any congressman would salivate over. on the surface, it appears like a win-win type of thing. This does have some costs for starting it up with this kind of thing. It could perhaps be argued that the 5% interest could cover a lot of that. I don't know. I'm not a math whiz, and I don't know that much about the workings of Social Security, but I'm sure the congressmen do. I would suggest that you talk to some unions, talk to some other fairly large organizations, get their backing, then go to see your local Congress. I don't know how they do it on the south and west side. I do know that on the north side, both Congressman Quigley and Congressman Tchaikovsky have something known as Congress on Your Corner. And what they do is they set up shop in places like libraries, and they don't send their aides, they go there in person. And they go there, and that is the time for you to go face to face with your congressman and lay this out. Oh, and incidentally, you do not have to write a $100,000 check for campaign expenses. They're doing this because they need the support of the voters. This is something that if you can produce some numbers, and if you can produce and organize effectively, this might have a chance. It won't be easy, it won't happen overnight, but then again, even Social Security was discussed back in the early 1900s, and the attitude was, it won't fly. It's too much of a pipe dream. Never mind the fact that Bismarck had it operating in Germany for 10 or 15 years by that time. This was something they didn't expect was going to work here in the United States. Social Security is one of the greatest programs, and Medicare is one of the greatest programs that the United States government has come up with. And that doesn't mean that it has to stop there. But it requires a little bit of, I'm going to use a dirty word, common sense. It's going to require a little bit of common sense, it's going to require a little bit of planning, and it's going to require a little bit of patience, and it's certainly going to require a little bit of knowing which buttons you press with each congressman or congresswoman. But I can tell you, because I'm a newspaper reporter, I have also in previous jobs done some lobbying. I can tell you this is the sort of thing that properly done you could make it happen. But not if you go in. I mean, amateur night is nice at Carol's Playhouse on Clark Street, where they have amateur country western singers 3 times a week. Amateur night is wonderful at the Admiral Theater. Amateur night does not play well on the floor of Congress. Thank you. Yeah, give me a north side angle. Give me a north side angle we can talk about. Give me a north side angle we can talk about it. Seriously.
A bit of history. Otto von Bismarck, after he and his party had passed all sorts of anti-socialist laws, as is verboten, was facing increasing numbers of socialist representatives in the Reichstag. And this was one way of undermining them by taking a little of their platform, and Roosevelt did similar in the 1930s.
Okay. As the chair, he can just speak whenever he wants.
Right.
We gotta do what we gotta do, the rules, you know.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm gonna tell them to shut up and
All
listen.
right, who's the next?
Shut up and listen.
You're out of order.
Coming from a true labor organizer.
$2 Do you want one? Gary, you ready?
What's going on here? All right, now we're back in business. Thank you, Mr. Powers, for a nice introduction here to your issue. Oops. All right, now for a nice outline, and thanks for your efforts here to bring things. I'm going to be eclectic as usual. First of all, how do you deal with Congress? You probably don't want to waste time with the congressman. You want to go to the staff member who handles that matter. You have to identify which congressmen are on the committee. If they're not on the committee that handles your issues, it's very tough for them to be able to do anything meaningful for your issue. Matter of fact, I don't know, I disagree with you totally on this thing about bringing money. I've met on many, many occasions with the members of Illinois delegation. I work 6 states. And even sometimes, you have to go through a scheduler. And to be honest with you, in certain congressmen, I'm not going to question their intellectual abilities, but you may in fact be better off talking to a staffer who's very knowledgeable. They work at these issues. And speaking to the congressman who's supposed to be the master of all things, granted if they have an interest in it, if you really, really, really want to meet with one, you have to convince the scheduler the importance of your issue and its relevance to that district. You have to show how it relates to the district. And this, sir, is where you need to do your homework. You have absolutely no data whatsoever that you presented. I kept thinking, how many senior citizens are there? How much is paid into credit card companies? What are the rates? What are the averages? You got to get some little more data there. It won't be a lot, but I think that would add to it. That's what you really need. Now, if I can come in and say I've got 500,000 senior citizens in your district who are of a certain poverty income level, things of this nature, what's the nature of this loaning business? How much are credit cards ripping us off these days? I don't know what the interest is on credit cards. Is it? I always pay it, and I'm not one of those who has ever accrued any interest on a credit card. And all I know is if you fail on a utility bill, it's like $10. And then if you fail to pay the credit card, isn't it $15 or $25 penalty right up front?
Depends on the card.
Or something like that. I mean, that's stiff. They're really outrageous here. There's no allowance for that. But anyhow, get some data together. The other thing is, Butler was kind of hitting on this. We had a little project there of our railroad. You may not be aware of this, but we have a web page, and we sat down and we decided who are the deciding officials who can make this happen. And that's what that web page is for. It's not really for the public, but it was a convenient place to put it all together. And that outlines the game plan that we have to, whom we have to convince. And yes, you're entirely correct, you have to pick up allies, associations, wherever you can. And actually, depending on the issue at the federal, state, and local level. I mean, the thing like the senior caucus here, you know, and things like that. You want to pick in AARP, and the National Association of Retired Federal Employees might be interested in this. Let's see, what else? But okay, we got data here. You kind of hit on this. You need money. Well, you know, what seniors are going to use this? I guess if they got, you know, poverty is choice and poverty is of circumstance, you know. And we hit on it a little bit. I guess some senior citizens could have offspring of real losers who need money every now and then. Perhaps they really need it themselves for some situation. Now, if I was diagnosed with only 10 months to live, and I don't know if I'd even bother getting $900, I guess, to have a little good time or something, you know. Doesn't seem like, I think I'm entitled to it as a matter of fact for what I've done for the American Society. Yeah. I think that's kind of on the low side. Lousy $900, big fucking deal. Seriously, another thing is, this is not a complex issue. Social Security is somewhat like salary garnishment for human resource people. This is not a complex thing for a payroll operation. It's like garnishing wages. Electronically, you get a paycheck. You can, like I have paychecks. We can up front just choose 6 places where that check is divided electronically on payday. But I have the money sent directly to one charity. 1 cent here, 1 cent there. And that's not questioned. That's an option that's available to many, many employers, especially larger ones. That's a standard thing. It's been software's been around. It's not a thing. So I mean, the implementation of this is nothing whatsoever. I mean, the only thing I'd like to know is how much is paid in the credit card companies. I mean, you're going to have to convince them. Let's see, now regarding Bush, I like this. Bush was going to destroy Social. He wanted people to take their own money out of Social Security and invest it. I remember that. I lobbied pretty hard against it. And later on in his own administration, we had the stock market crash. Can you imagine what would happen if those people had done that? That's just nuts. No, this isn't a complex thing. Sit down the game plan. It might be doable, you know, things of that nature. As I say, there are situations that come up in life. A little advance to cover you through. There's certainly a cap on you doing it. You can only do it, every 10 months, whatever, unless it's paid up again. So you've met the criteria. That's the only thing, the cycle time in this. But anyhow, thanks a lot. Hope to hear from you again and give us an update. Shut up and listen. That's how I like it. That's the way you should be, all of you.
If we have no other
Quiet
rebutters,
and
I
listen.
think it's time for our speaker to give the final rebuttal. All right, no more takers. You're on, Mr. Wilson.
People who are defeaters. Ain't nothing we can do. They got us. That's it. No matter what we do, it's just not gonna work. So you only got the people who know that change can be made, who are gonna step up. They're the people who stepped up and made unions what they were after World War II. They stepped up. Unions built the middle class. And we see that happening. We see that happening in Walmart workers. We see that happening in the fast food workers. They're getting together and they're stepping up. It's coming. And like I said, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, there's going to be a change in Chicago's Hall in the Cook County. Understand? Because those people are personally affected right now. They don't like it, and they know that you can't really give them a strong reason not to do this. And so I thank you, and maybe some of the naysayers, which I call, the gutless ones. Oh no, we can't do that. They ain't gonna let us do that. Well, and the bystanders, go see Leroy and Henry. Because I can't do that. I can't sign. Well, there's a lot of them. But there's also those who will say, I'll step up, count me in. Thank you.
All right.
Yes. All right. Thank our speaker for a lovely evening and good proposal, and all of you for coming.